time heals all? Is that the reason? 6 years ago, then candidate for president Joe Biden said this about Saudi Arabia.
We were going to, in fact, make them pay the price and make them, in fact, the pariah that they are. There's very little social redeeming value in the present government in Saudi Arabia.
He called them a pariah. Well, apparently Biden wasn't all that serious. Check out Biden's friend first fist bump with July 2022 in Saudi Arabia. Now fast forward to today. There's the fist bump. Fast forward to today. Here's what President Trump said inside the Oval Office while hosting the Saudi Crown Prince.
We have a extremely respected man in the Oval Office today, and a friend of mine for a long time, a very good friend of mine. And I'm very proud of the job he's done. What he's done is incredible in terms of human rights and everything else.
Right before that, Trump rolled out the red carpet for his guest, Mohammed bin Salman. What was on their agenda today? Business, for one. More on that in just a moment. Plus, more Epstein files. Today, the House voted to release more documents.
On this vote, the yeas are 427, the nays are 1. 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Plus, our outrage of the day. This person not only got cozy with Jeffrey Epstein, he also had some choice words about women. What did former Secretary of the Treasury and former Harvard President Larry Summers email? We're going to tell you that later this hour. But the outrage does continue. 2 years ago, an Alaska Airlines pilot who was high on drugs tried to crash a plane. But now you will not believe what he's getting away with. And an A-lister turned activist, Nicki Minaj. She goes to the United Nations.
Protecting Christians in Nigeria is not about taking sides or dividing people. It is about uniting humanity.
We're going to get to that, but first, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, from pariah to guest of honor in the Oval Office. White House correspondent Mike Carter joins me. Mike?
Hey, Greta, good to be with you. Well, sale of U.S. F-35 fighter jets to Saudi Arabia on the table today during President Trump's meeting with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, as well as other business deals, and including the expansion of the Abraham Accords, possibly inviting Saudi Arabia into those accords, something President Trump has long talked about. But with the House voting this afternoon, Greta, to push forward with the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files today, President Trump asked about his thoughts on the matter. Of course, the president, long reluctant to release these files. That has changed in recent days, now saying he supports the files' release.
We have nothing to do with Epstein. The Democrats do. All of his friends were Democrats. You look at this Reid Hoffman, you look at Larry Summers, Bill Clinton, they went to his island all the time, and many others. They're all Democrats. All I want for people to recognize a great job that I've done on pricing, on affordability, because we brought prices way down, but they're going way lower.
Well, President Trump has long been wanting Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords. Today, the president saying the talks, they're trending in the right direction, with MBS saying today Saudi Arabia wants to normalize relations with Israel if a secured path to a two-state solution can be reached. Also today, Saudi Arabia previously vowed to invest $600 billion into the U.S. during Trump's term in office in exchange for a defense pact, access to advanced AI chips, and a civilian nuclear deal. Today, MBS upping that investment to $1 trillion.
I believe, Mr. President, today and tomorrow we're going to announce that we are going to increase that $600 billion to almost $1 trillion of investment, real investment and real opportunity by details in many areas. And the agreement that we are signing today in many areas in technology, in AI, in earth materials, magnet, etc., that will create a lot of investment opportunities.
So you are doing that now. You're saying to me now that the $600 billion will be $1 trillion.
Definitely.
And today, Greta, the president also, during his meeting with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, this is the first meeting since the 2018 killing of Saudi critic and Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi by Saudi agents in Turkey. The CIA concluded MBS approved of the operation, but the Crown Prince maintains he had no knowledge of the attack, which he's called heinous and unjustifiable. And President Trump condemning a reporter in the Oval Office today, Greta, who asked about Khashoggi, saying, look, MBS, according to Trump, knew nothing about it, and even going on to say there's no need to embarrass our guest like that. Now, MBS will attend a dinner tonight with President Trump and First Lady Melania. He'll also be in the company of Cristiano Ronaldo, the world-famous soccer player, as well as Elon Musk and Tiger Woods. Now, why Tiger Woods? Well, goes back to the whole relationship President Trump has with the Saudi Crown Prince and the PGA and Live Golf. President Trump has hosted a number of Saudi-owned Live Golf tournaments at his golf clubs, and Tiger Woods was at the White House earlier this year to talk about a now stalled merger between the PGA and Live Golf. Greta?
Mike Carter at the White House, thank you. A few minutes ago, trading on Wall Street ended for the day, and for the fourth straight day, stocks closed in the red. The Dow closed down 1.07%. The Dow is on its worst four-day stretch since April. The S&P 500 closed down 0.83%, and the NASDAQ 1.21% in the red. And some things that are concerning investors are worries about an artificial intelligence bubble. Companies that manufacture AI technology, including NVIDIA and Microsoft, reported losses today. Something else we're watching, Bitcoin. The cryptocurrency dipped below $90,000 for the first time in 7 months. It recovered some losses, but over the past month, Bitcoin has dropped about 13%. And today, did you have some issues with ChatGPT or Zoom or some other sites? The good news, it's not you or your tech skills. A giant outage hit a software company known as Cloudfare. Cloudfare helps websites manage their internet traffic. The outage, which was a global outage, disrupted several major websites and services for a few hours. Some of them are on your screen. So what caused it? According to Cloudfare, an oversized file triggered the crash, so it was an internal issue, not something external like hackers or terrorists. The company said, quote, "To be clear, there is no evidence that this was the result of an attack or caused by malicious activity." Coming up, does President Trump still want to talk to Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro? Why? That when the record continues.
Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country.
Before Charlie Kirk died, he issued a stark warning of terrifying dangers ahead in a new book, Pagan Threat, authored by Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie said Pagan Threat could save America and that you must read it. Get Pagan Threat free with Newsmax's special offer. Plus, get Dick Morse's new book, The Real Charlie Kirk. 2 great books with our free offer today.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 91 years of age, here with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you.
It really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order now. You'll be glad you did.
Hello, this is Franklin Graham. This Thanksgiving, what are you thankful for? You're thankful for family, your friends. How about God? That's right. Are you thankful for God? You see, God made you. He created you. He loves you. And you say, but Franklin, my life is in such a mess. I'm not sure I'm thankful for my life. Well, that's why God sent his son, Jesus Christ, to this earth to save us from this mess of sin that we live in. You see, that's right. God sent his son, Jesus Christ, to this earth to take your sins. He died and shed his blood on a cross for our sins, but on the third day, God raised him to life. He's not dead. He's alive. And he'll come into your heart right now if you invite him. Just pray this prayer with me. Just say, God, I'm a sinner. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I want to invite Jesus to come into my heart, to take control of my life. I want to surrender my life to him. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. If you prayed that prayer, call that number that's on the screen.
Now back to Capitol Hill, where the House has just approved a bill to release more Epstein files. North Carolina Republican Congressman Greg Murphy joins me. Good evening, sir. Big vote in one direction. There's only one person who dissented from doing it. Why did you vote to release these files? What's your thinking?
You know, Gretchen, what Jeffrey Epstein did was heinous, it was depraved, and I think the American people deserve transparency, accountability for what he did. You know, these victims deserve justice, and this is one step forward to try to bring them that justice. I will tell you, Gretchen, I do have some concerns because, you know, these files are voluminous, they go on and on and on, and just being named does not make you guilty. If you were, you know, if Epstein gave you a tip or something, if you worked at a door or something, doesn't make you guilty of the crime. So, you know, there has to be discernment with all this information. But the bottom line is these victims deserve justice, and we're one step forward towards giving that to them.
Well, who gets to make the decision whose name gets released or not? I realize some were merely passengers on the plane, but I know that some people were quite cozy, sending emails, had a great friendship, and in some way vaguely enabling him, or at least showing sort of the seamy side of themselves. Who's going to make the decision what names are released?
Yeah, this is the problem. You pointed out perfectly, Gretchen. This was done by the Oversight Committee. Jamie Comer was really delivering out a heck of a lot more information, actually redacted to protect innocent victims, really, than this is what's happening. Now I guess it's the public opinion, and this is, again, one of my concerns as we move forward, who gets to make these decisions. Again, we have to look at what the reason for this was, to try to deliver justice to the victims. Hopefully that gets done. Sadly enough, with this coming down, there's going to be some collateral damage, I think, with some of the victims or some of the folks who get named. But, you know, this was the outcry of the American people. They wanted this. This was a bipartisan, you know, exclamation that they wanted to find out what this information is. What they do is really up to them.
Well, you know, now I think, though, you're a little bit in a bad spot. I mean, now that it's going to be released, is it, and, you know, for the purpose of transparency, if you say, okay, well, we're going to redact these names. Either, I mean, at this point, the Congress has said we want transparency. The American people, a lot of them have asked for it. So, you know, in some ways, any sort of effort to redact is just going to create another problem, and people accuse you of playing favorites and everything else. So it's either all or nothing, I see at this point, and apparently it's going to be all, or it should be all.
Yeah, and that's true. You point out a good point, Gretchen. I mean, it is all or it is redacted. You know, we saw that the Democrats and some of the mainstream news media last week redacted a certain name, a name which actually the woman actually cleared President Trump of any wrongdoing. So, no, let's get the information out there. Let's let the investigations continue. Let the Oversight Committee do what it's supposed to be doing. But this should hopefully put some of the issues to rest. You know, sadly enough, Gretchen, we've got so many other issues that we're dealing with here, you know, trying to make things affordable, foreign country and adversaries. Sadly enough, lurid details sell in this country. So let's get it out, let's get it done, and move on. Let's protect the victims, give them justice, but let's move on with other things.
All right, does it have to go to the Senate and for signature from the president?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the president came out this weekend and said, let's just release it, let's get on and move on with things.
And do you expect it to pass in the Senate?
I would expect it. I expect it would. It passed overwhelmingly in the House, and I can't even believe our wonderful senators would refute that. So I think it passes easily in the Senate also.
Congressman Greg Murphy, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Gretchen. Have a great afternoon.
Meanwhile, President Trump says he's still open to speaking with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. This afternoon in the Oval Office, President Trump was asked about the Venezuelan president. Here is President Trump.
Have they talked to President Maduro of Venezuela yet, or are you still open to that?
He wants to talk.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm open to talk. I talk to everybody. But no, he wants to. They treated us very badly. They sent all of their prison population into the United States, and we're getting them out rapidly. But he sent all of his, and he sends drugs into the United States and other things. No, he treated us badly.
Florida Senator and member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Rick Scott joins me. Good afternoon, sir. And of course, we always talk to people who we aren't friendly with, whether it is Stalin in World War II, Kim Jong-un, or any other person, to try to get a better situation for the United States. But what if President Trump meets with President Maduro? What would you expect that conversation to be about?
Well, first off, let's all remember he's not the president. The president-elect is Armando Gonzalez. Maduro is the head of drug cartels. So the president should meet with him, and what he should say is, you better get your butt out of Venezuela. Your days are numbered. You might as well move to Russia or China right now, because you will no longer be in power in Venezuela. It's just a matter of time. President Trump is doing the right thing. He's holding these drug cartels accountable. I have grandkids. I want my grandkids to be alive. What this president's doing is saying, I care about Americans by getting rid of these narco traffickers. You want to sell drugs into our country? You want to kill our grandkids? You're going to die. That's exactly what this president has said.
Then why are we buying oil from them? We're not buying as much as we used to, but we're buying some because we have the refineries around the Gulf course. But, I mean, in order to sort of, it does prop up Maduro to the extent that we buy oil because that's their only product.
We shouldn't be buying anything. We should not be buying anything that helps the regime. No different than we shouldn't be helping China. We shouldn't be helping. I mean, China's decided to be our enemy. All right, don't buy things from China. We shouldn't be buying things from Venezuela to the extent it helps Maduro, and this helps Maduro. So, President Trump has tried everything he can to try to hold Maduro accountable. If they talk, I'm very comfortable. What the president's going to say is, you're no longer going to be in power. You might as well leave.
You have called him, as many have, as a narco-terror. I mean, he runs a cartel. He's a narco-terrorist himself, Maduro. President Trump has declared war on these narco-terrorists. Are we at war with Maduro? I mean, should he expect even an invasion from the United States? Should he feel threatened by the United States?
Well, I think what this president's going to do is he's going to hold these narco-terrorists accountable. Now, look, Maduro is the head of El Cartel de los Solos, El Tren de Aragua. He's the head of drug cartels. That's who he is. He's under indictment in New York. So he is going to, if he doesn't get to Russia or China soon, he will be arrested and he will be imprisoned in the United States. That's what's going to happen. And so I think this president, in contrast to Biden, in contrast to Obama, he is going to hold Maduro accountable.
Are we going to go in and arrest him?
I think it's going to happen, but I think Maduro's going to leave first. I mean, I think if he doesn't, then he's going to be treated just like Noriega was in Panama. He will be arrested, he will be tried, he will be in prison the rest of his life in the United States. So as Maduro understands that's what's going to happen, he will leave. He'll do the same thing as Assad did, and he'll go to Russia or China.
But he's been such a survivor, even when people have protested against him. You know, at the top, I referred to him as president, of course. I mean, and you said it was someone else. I thought it was Machado who was really the one who won the race. I don't know who it was, but it was certainly not Maduro that won the race. He's declared himself the president. He has quashed a lot of protests. People have protested against him. So I don't see how he leaves unless we actually go in and get him. And under the theory that we take out narco-terrorists who are in international water on boats, if you sort of follow the thread, you would expect that Trump, if he were going to be consistent, would go in and get him and bring him to stand trial for that indictment.
I think he's going to be held accountable. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I believe the president's going to hold him accountable. He's the leader of drug cartels, so he's not the duly elected president. So I have no sympathy for Maduro. What he has done to the population of Venezuela. I've been to the border up in Venezuela. I've watched Venezuelan little boys and girls have to sleep on the street, getting one meal a day, having no medicine, no food because of Maduro. I have no sympathy for him. However he is taken out of power, it will be a good day for the world.
You know, everybody talks about his drug smuggling, but nobody talks about very often about the human trafficking, all the girls and young women who are trafficked in that region all across the Caribbean. And most of them are coming from Venezuela, most of the young girls, whether they're going, whether they're going through the islands that many Americans go to as tourists.
It's disgusting. I mean, like, you try to think, who raises somebody to treat human beings like that? That would traffic another human being. Like, who does that? How can you go to bed, sleep at night, and know that what you did was harmed a young girl, or made sure a little baby died because they didn't have medicine, or watch a child starve to death? And that's exactly what Maduro has done. And the number of people he's tortured in his prisons, and what he did to American citizens, by sending the drugs in this country, sending his criminals into this country. There are so many wonderful Venezuelans in Venezuela and in the United States. But think about the number of criminals that Maduro has sent here and the despicable acts these people have taken against Americans and against Venezuelans.
Well, I've investigated the islands down there and how they are essentially enablers, because a lot of those islands, whether it's the police or the government officials, they love the money, so they're enablers, and they're not fighting back like the United States is about this. Senator Rick Scott, thank you, sir.
All right, thanks. Take care, Gretchen.
Coming up, this doesn't happen every day. In fact, it's never happened before. A world-famous rapper giving a speech to the United Nations. That when the record continues.
Hey, I'm Carl Higbee from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
Can your roof handle another winter? Cold weather makes your roof dry, brittle, and crack.
If you're just hoping your roof survives, that's risky. Let us inspect it for free, giving you peace of mind before winter hits. And if your roof needs some help, we'll try to restore it, not replace it, saving you thousands. Not every roof qualifies, but most do.
Call now and you'll get a free roof tune-up with your Roofmax treatment.
It's just like our new house. I hope you have an American Home Shield warranty. Leaky toilet? Fixed. Oven beyond repair? If AHS can't fix your covered item, then replace it, no matter its age. Sign up today at ahs.com.
Muddy paws on your floors, furniture, and you. Stop mud before it tracks with Muddy Mat, the original anti-mud mat for dogs. It's 5 times more absorbent than other doormats. This one Muddy Mat holds an entire bucket of water until you squeeze it out. The secret is millions of super absorbent mud lock fibers that suck away all the mud, dirt, and liquid from your pet's paws and is safe to use in your washer and dryer. Go online to getmuddymat.com.
Wow. Lo and behold.
I know that walk anywhere.
Welcome to the set of Tulsa. It's a privilege to see you here.
Oh, my God. If any first responder or Gold Star widow has someone die in the line of duty and they leave a young family behind, we pay every mortgage off in America.
Well, it's such a humane thing to do, to take care of the people that are taking care of us.
Exactly.
I'm Sylvester Stallone. Please donate $11 a month at T2T.org.
I'm a martial artist, a skydiver, a pilot, and all of them require your feet to work. Get up in the morning, and it felt like I was standing on marbles on my heel. When I went into the Good Feet store, the fitting was personalized. It was all about me. You put in the arch supports, and your day becomes better, and the sun shines, the unicorns run by, and, you know, it's a good life. I'm Randy, and that's my Good Feet story.
See for yourself with a free personalized arch support fitting at the Good Feet store.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 91 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, neither of us have any kind of sickness, and we're as flexible as we were 30 years ago, and we still do the physical things we did 30 years ago. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you. You won't believe it. Immuno 150 is an awesome nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it.
Yes, it really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order online or call the number listed on the screen, but don't place your order until after you've watched the videos on our website. Thank you from both of us, and God bless.
A baby step forward in the Middle East. Last night, the United Nations Security Council voted to adopt President Trump's Gaza peace plan. This makes Trump's plan an international mandate. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Mike Waltz, saying this.
Per the carefully negotiated language in the 20-point plan, this resolution charts a possible pathway for Palestinian self-determination after the Palestinian Authority has completed the necessary reforms, where rockets will give way to olive branches and there is a chance to agree on a political horizon. It dismantles Hamas's grip, It ensures Gaza rises free from terror's shadow, prosperous and secure.
President Trump taking to Truth Social, saying in part, quote, "This will go down as one of the biggest approvals in the history of the United Nations, will lead to further peace all over the world, and is a moment of true historic proportion," end quote. But get this, Hamas is rejecting the plan. Middle East correspondent Zach Anders joins me from Tel Aviv, where it is 11:25 local time. Zach?
Well, good evening, Greta. That's a historic Security Council vote. Passed 13 yes votes, 0 no votes. Russia and China abstaining, which that's a major win in and of itself, because they both hold veto power here, and they had the power to sink this resolution. Now, the vote authorizes the creation of an international stabilization force and a transitional government in Gaza, advancing the president's 20-point peace plan. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Mike Waltz, you just heard from, telling the council last night that he expects a coalition of peacekeepers, troops, and advisors that will be tasked with restoring law and order in Gaza. They'll come from Muslim-majority nations, and they're not necessarily going to come from Middle Eastern states. Walsh shared that Indonesia and Azerbaijan are likely to deploy their forces as well. Forces that deploy in Gaza will first be tasked with securing humanitarian aid distribution, training the local Palestinian police, and securing Gaza's borders. These forces will also then eventually be tasked with demilitarizing the Gaza Strip. That's going to be a far more challenging task here. The resolution also authorizes a board of peace chaired by President Trump himself to govern until at least the end of 2027. And despite Jerusalem's objections, this peace plan leaves the door open for the Palestinian Authority to have a role. Ambassador Wall saying that because of this plan, there is a pathway for Palestinian self-determination, and that if the Palestinian Authority completes necessary reforms, they could be the eventual government in Gaza. We've heard far-right ministers inside this coalition behind Prime Minister Netanyahu, like Itamar Ben-Gvir and Benny Smotrich, who have said under no circumstance would they ever allow for that to happen. They're calling for no Palestinian Authority involvement, and they have done so throughout the entire war. But it does appear that as this peace plan progresses, that those voices within Prime Minister Netanyahu's coalition are not going to be the final say here. And this plan, it's shown remarkable down-ballot support from Middle Eastern states, Saudi Arabia, who we've heard a lot from today, Qatar, Turkey, even Pakistan are all on board here. They're pledging their support and material supplies into this plan. It's going to be coordinated by the United States here with a new joint command center that was built in the south of Israel. We'll be touring that tomorrow. We'll have some of that story for you again tomorrow. But as you mentioned, Greta, Hamas rejecting the vote outright, declaring last night that any peacekeepers sent into Gaza would not be welcome. They continue to refuse to disarm, even though they agreed to do so when they signed on to this peace agreement last month. Greta?
Has Hamas agreed to turn over its weapons? Because that's another part of this plan.
No, they haven't. We've got Israeli intelligence telling us that they think they're stockpiling weapons in Africa that they'll try to eventually smuggle back into the Gaza Strip or to be used abroad. That's what Israeli intelligence is claiming. And we're talking about heavy weapons here. That's kind of the focus of when we talk about demilitarizing Gaza, we're talking about the rocket launchers, the RPGs, the grenades, the things that you would need to import because they're single use and they've already been used already and the stockpiles have been depleted. But we also got to remember that it's a patriarchal society, and just about every man, son, grandfather has a Kalashnikov, a pistol, a sidearm. They all have weapons. It's going to be very difficult, and I don't think that that's the aim here, is to try and take away all of those weapons, that those handguns and AK-47s. That's just not going to be feasible.
Where is Hamas getting its money with, is it still Iran? Iran, obviously, their nuclear sites were hit in June, but they still have money. Is Iran funding Hamas at this point?
That's the question we still don't have an exact answer to. And when you talk to Jerusalem about that issue, that's where they start to remind us about the ties with Qatar. And they get very frustrated about these channels where the money was going through before the war, flowed through all sorts of different accounts, made their way into the hands of those men that were sheltered in Doha, that had that political bureau, if you will, in that Qatari capital, and that the money was flowing through the close relationships that they had in the Gulf and then making their way into the Gaza Strip. Jerusalem says that that's still happening.
And the southern border of Gaza, the Philadelphia corridor, who's guarding that to make sure that things aren't going in and out through the South?
Well, the IDF still wants to have some role and capacity, but we've seen them reduce their footprint and presence significantly. It's also what led to the collapse of the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, that American group that was distributing aid. They were using that corridor that was secured by the IDF, and then the IDF during this ceasefire term was saying, well, we aren't under the same structure as before, and we can't guarantee safety along those routes per se. So that route in particular is a lot more quiet. We're not seeing as much military activity from the IDF side. The Egyptian side, of course, they still have a massive military presence on their side of the border. The element here we're still trying to understand is when these international peacekeepers come in, if we're looking at Indonesian and Azerbaijani troops, and their role is to secure borders, does that mean they're also going to control the Rafah crossing and that border, the Philadelphia crossing, or the Philadelphia corridor, that strip that's only about 10 miles long between Egypt and the Gaza Strip, if it's going to be their role to try and secure that border as well?
Well, I'd give Egypt a D- for how it was guarding the Gaza Strip leading up to October 7th, because things were coming in right over there. And no one's ever pointed the finger at Egypt, but I certainly have a lot of questions about them and that military buildup. Zach Anders, thank you.
Thanks, Greta.
And today, an unlikely face appeared before the United Nations.
In Nigeria, Christians are being targeted, driven from their homes, and killed. Churches have been burned. Families have been torn apart, and entire communities live in fear constantly, simply because of how they pray. I want to be clear. Protecting Christians in Nigeria is not about taking sides or dividing people. It is about uniting humanity.
American rapper Nicki Minaj putting the spotlight on Nigerian Christians facing death just because they are Christians. Late last month, President Trump said, quote, "Christianity is facing an existential threat in Nigeria. Thousands of Christians are being killed. Radical Islamists are responsible for this mass slaughter. I am hereby making Nigeria a country of particular concern," end quote. Coming up, the outrage of the day. Find out who takes the cake today and why when the record continues.
You know, folks, I thank God for my wonderful wife, my kids, my country, the greatest nation ever. And Americans like you who believe in the truth, the Chris Salcedo Show will never stop fighting for you.
The Chris Salcedo Show, for the news you need to know.
What's gold is new again. Pardon the pun. But considering gold has been used as currency since around 550 BC, it has been on fire the past year. I'm here with Daniel Boston, the founder of Preserve Gold. Why is gold so stable and such a good investment for many people?
Take the central bank, for example, the Federal Reserve. They print money out of thin air, and then they take that printed money to go buy hard assets like gold to protect themselves against the very risks that they're creating. So I always tell people, don't do what the big players are telling you to do. Do what they're doing themselves.
Yeah, watch what they're doing.
That's correct.
Okay. If people are interested in investing with Preserve Gold, how do they get started?
Text Newsmax to 50505 to get your free information and up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. That's right. Text Newsmax to 50505.
All right. No way you can miss it.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
Posture matters, and Tommy Copper has the bra for you. Relieve neck and shoulder pain, improve your posture. Look and feel your best every day with back support built right into your bra. The best-selling shoulder support bra from Tommy Copper is the upgrade you need. Comfortable, supportive, designed to help you carry confident posture when it matters most.
Why would I wear any other bra?
Go to TommyCopper.com and save 40%. Upgrade your bra today.
I don't know about you, but I like things the easy way. That's why the Experian app is great. It shows me credit cards based on me and my credit. Right here in the app. Oh, look at that. I just found a new cashback card. Easy. Get the app from your big financial friend, Experian.
I'm Elmer Heinrich. At 91 years of age, here with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you.
It really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order now. You'll be glad you did.
President Trump is feuding with Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. The president posting on Truth Social, quote, "I'm withdrawing my support and endorsement of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of the great state of Georgia." The president continued, quote, "I understand that wonderful conservative people are thinking about primarying Marjorie in her district of Georgia, that they too are fed up with her and her antics. And if the right person runs, they will have my complete and unyielding support," end quote. And in a separate Truth Social post, President Trump went on to call the Congresswoman a traitor, writing, quote, "Marjorie Taylor Greene is a disgrace to our great Republican Party," end quote. And earlier today, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who does not wilt like a flower, pushed back against the president. Here is Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene during a press conference with survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's horrendous abuse.
I was called a traitor by a man that I fought for 6 years for. And I gave him my loyalty for free. I won my first election without his endorsement, beating 8 men in a primary. And I've never owed him anything, but I fought for him for the policies and for America first. And he called me a traitor for standing with these women and refusing to take my name off the discharge petition. Let me tell you what a traitor is. A traitor is an American that serves foreign countries and themselves. A patriot is an American that serves the United States of America and Americans like the women standing behind me.
Meanwhile, get this one. New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani has endorsed Abba Kawas, and that's to replace him in the New York State Assembly seat in Queens that Mamdani is vacating as he becomes mayor. And if you're asking yourself, who is Abba Kawas, and what are her politics, and what does she think? Here's a clip of Kawas from February 2017.
The system of capitalism and racism and white supremacy, etc., have all, and Islamophobia have all been used, to colonize lands, right, to take resources from other people. And so this is like a long trajectory. And we're just seeing the manifestations of that continuation, right, with 9/11. And so a lot of times when people are asking us to respond about, attack, right, if you look back, like, historically, right, a lot of us come from lands that were colonized, lands where wars are being waged, right, a lot of times because of U.S. policy or the policies in Europe. And so I find that we can connect over that, but then also that the idea that we have to apologize for like a terror attack that like a couple of people did, and then there is no apologies or reparations for genocides and for slavery, etc., is something that I kind of find like reprehensible.
Yes, she blames the United States for 9/11, not those terrorists who murdered almost 3,000 people. And we have breaking news. A federal judge has blocked Texas from using its newly redrawn congressional map in the upcoming midterm 2026 election. Remember, that map redrew the state's congressional districts to create 5 GOP-friendly seats. Instead, United States District Court Judge Jeffrey Brown has ordered the state to use House district lines adopted by the Texas legislature in 2021 for next year's congressional elections. This is a major setback for Republicans as they work to maintain their narrow majority in the House And do not forget this. On November 4th of this year, California voters approved a ballot measure, Proposition 50, that allows California to implement a newly redrawn congressional map creating 5 additional districts favorable to Democrats. CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp and former Special Assistant to President Biden and former Press Secretary to the First Lady, Michael LaRosa, joins me. Michael, this is a big win for, at least in the meantime, for Democrats.
Sure, and it's been a pretty rough couple weeks for the president, I would say. Indiana this week, earlier in the week, decided their state legislature said they are not going to do redistricting. And we thought that was all a done deal. Same in Texas. So good week on the redistricting front for Democrats because we got those 5 extra seats we're planning for outside of California. But in all likelihood, I assume the Texas Attorney General will take it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will, give the green light to redraw the map.
I don't know. I never try to. I'm never successful in getting to the Supreme Court, Matt. But I mean, the whole reason why California did that to have 5 up was to match the 5 up that was in Texas. Well, now Texas is 5 down, and California is 5 up.
Right.
And you've got a narrow majority in the House.
Right. It's a race to the bottom here. So I believe that there's wide latitude for legislative chambers to determine what their congressional lines are. It doesn't surprise me that yet again a federal judge has intervened. It's ironic because it's usually federal judges coming into Republican-drawn state maps saying that there are questions of race and stuff that are problematic, and there's always this game of chicken. Can they get the ballots done in time for the election? There's plenty of time to get these ballots done. There's no reason for this judge to intervene, but it just shows you the 2 parties hate each other. They hate each other so much that even on redistricting, which is where they kind of take care of each other, I'll give you this county, if you'll give me that county, even that has broken down so much because of the hatred and rancor.
Yeah, but the hatred and the rancor, and this is why I look to the midterms, is that in the event that the Democrats take the House, they will have the House Oversight Committee. And that will completely change everything. It will paralyze President Trump from doing any more of his agenda that he might want to do. But it also has all the investigations of the Trump administration. It becomes full employment for journalism and for cable news. But for the rest of the country is that nothing will get done.
Yeah, I was in the Speaker's office during the last second half of a Trump administration, and I remember a lot of investigations. I remember an impeachment. Well, there were 2. But yeah, his agenda will come to a screeching halt, at least. But President Trump also doesn't work a lot with Congress. He does a lot through executive order anyway. However, yeah, Democrats are chomping at the bit to launch investigations and subpoena administration officials, for sure.
Which I don't like the executive order, the overuse of executive order. I mean, all the presidents do. When they think they can't get a congressional legislation passed, it'll stick for many generations, but it's like a whipsaw when the executive orders. They last 4 years.
So, Greta, you have this thing where you have the filibuster, which is a number arbitrarily set by the Senate. They vote, it's a Senate rule. And so the only way you could get stuff done is it had to be at least a little bit bipartisan. Not for Democrats, because in my lifetime, they've had as many as 75 of the Senate seats. For Republicans, it's hard to get a majority. We have a majority now of something like 53. And, that's about as good as it gets for us. When I worked for President Bush, we got to 55. But we never get to the number it takes to overcome the filibuster, which is why President Trump is hammering on Republicans. If you want to get anything done, get rid of that filibuster for legislation. The downside to that is that means the Democrats will do the same thing, and we won't be able to stop anything they want to do. But the point of this is, Michael's right. Besides the budget vehicle, which doesn't require a supermajority vote in the Senate, just 50 votes, right? The majority matters because then the president can get his budget priorities through that second version of a big, beautiful bill. And then everything else now is executive orders. It's the way it is because the 2 parties just can't agree on anything. Don't even agree on foreign policy, by and large. At least on foreign policy, you can get agreement.
The problem with executive orders is, first of all, it doesn't give the stability to the business community.
It's temporary because the next president can undo it.
Because the next president can just tear it up and write another one.
That's right.
Yeah, the day that we were inaugurated in 2021, I think President Biden had, at that point, hit the record for signing the most executive orders and overturning the most. And I think President Trump, a couple months ago, when he was re-inaugurated, beat that record. So we just keep dishing out executive orders and just overturning them.
But this is the American people. They have to decide. I'm looking at all this stuff on California. You know, I believe the Democratic Party has embraced a radical agenda with these kind of candidates like Mamdani and the person he wants to replace her, what looks to me like a radical. So the question is that what America wants? America is going to have to decide on these things.
I mean, I think
it might just be New York.
It might just be New York and a couple jurisdictions. I mean, I think a lot of other parts. I mean, a lot of other people don't think like that.
I think the American people have common sense, and they will chastise a party that looks extreme. The one thing that President Trump has going for him with all these executive orders is most of these policies are very popular.
Well, does President Trump have to worry about the fact that there are now some people who are mega people, they're more mega than Trump? You know, I mean, he's got some people that are starting to carve into that.
Not my clowns, not my circus. That's their problem.
What about that? What about that, Matt?
President Trump created MAGA. He gets the right to say what MAGA is. And so for people who are congressmen or other people
what about, like,
to come up and
Tucker
say,
Carlson? I mean,
I say the same thing to Tucker Carlson. The president gets to determine what MAGA is. If they lampooned or characterized MAGA as we never used the military, right? And it was just...
We don't do anything overseas. They're pretty much isolationists. We don't help Ukraine.
Right. That is never what MAGA was. What MAGA was going back to Reagan. We had the Bush wars, the Bush-Cheney wars, and we go back to Reagan, this idea that you have a strong military, a strong culture, and a strong economy, and people fear messing with the United States. That's the policy that Trump is readopting.
Yeah,
Matt Schlapp and Michael, you have to save it for next time.
Got it.
Matt Schlapp, Michael LaRosa, thank you both. And it's time for our outrage of the day alert. Okay, who takes the cake today? A dummy. He's former Secretary of the Treasury, former president of Harvard, Larry Summers. The former secretary now announcing he is stepping back from public life. Why? Because he got figuratively, not literally, but figuratively, caught with his pants down. His emails. Turns out Mr. Smarty Pants up at Harvard had a very cozy and close relationship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. He even got dating tips from Epstein. And here is where things really get outrageous. In one of Summers' emails dated October 27, 2017, Summers appeared to joke to Epstein that women are less intelligent than men. Summers wrote, quote, I observed that half the IQ in the world was possessed by women without mentioning that they are more than 51% of the population, end quote. In other words, women who comprise more than half the global population possess only one half the total IQ. In other words, according to Summers, women are the dummies. Meanwhile, Mr. Harvard, Mr. Treasury Secretary, Mr. Smarty Pants just got caught sending slimy emails to his pal Epstein. Summers can't be that smart because he just got caught. By the way, Summers is not a first offender. In 2005, in a speech, he said biological differences between men and women may explain why fewer women reach the top tiers of math, science, and engineering. The notable speech ended his presidency at Harvard. Coming up, if a pilot takes drugs and tries to crash a plane, should he get jailed? What do you think? That when the record continues.
Derriere, caboose, booty, badunkadunk. No matter what you call it, if you have hemorrhoids, your tushy is no laughing matter. So don't use a cream that treats your rear end like a joke. Get serious relief with Recticare Advanced Hemorrhoidal Cream. Recticare Advanced is seriously effective with 2 powerful medicines for rapid dual-action relief, soothing the uncomfortable swelling, itching, and pain of your hemorrhoids. For serious hemorrhoid relief for your buns, get Recticare Advanced.
Have you compared your Medicare plan recently? With eHealth, you can compare Medicare plans side by side for free. So we invited people to give eHealth a try and discover how easy it can be to find your Medicare match.
This is pretty amazing. I can go on a vacation with this money. I have quite a few prescriptions.
That's why people call us. We're going to compare plans, and I'm going to try to get you as much bang for your buck as possible.
That's great.
This one here covers all your prescriptions, your doctors as well.
Oh, wonderful.
I have a hard time with this.
That's okay. That's what I'm here for. Based on our conversation today, I would highly recommend this plan.
You're so helpful. You don't know.
I'm excited for you, sir. Again, my name is Champ. If you have any other questions, give me a ring.
Thank you very much. Oh my God, that was super easy.
See how your Medicare plan stacks up with the big changes for 2026. Just call this number or get started at eHealth.com. Compare plans that cover your doctors, prescriptions, pharmacy, and budget. And compare plans from the nation's top insurance companies. They pay us to help you. How much do you think you'll be able to save using eHealth?
At least $300 a month.
Would you say you found your Medicare match?
Yes, I did. What Sam did, she explained to me exactly what I need to know.
Well, I have a surprise for you. Cham, come on out.
Oh my goodness!
It's a pleasure to meet you today, sir. What does it feel like to be face to face?
You helped me out quite a bit.
Call to meet your advisor. They're paid the same no matter which Medicare Advantage plan you choose. Ask them about eHealth Live Advise or get started on your own at eHealth.com. Either way, it's always a free service. See if you could get more for less with eHealth, like these folks did.
The savings are unbelievable.
I could see the costs side by side.
eHealth is wonderful. $1,200 savings in my pocket. I was really pleasantly surprised with that.
Call 1-800-708-0234 to compare Medicare plans in your area or visit eHealth.com.
eHealth, your Medicare matchmaker.
I'm Elmer Heinrich. At 91 years of age, here with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you.
It really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order now. You'll be glad you did.
Okay, we have another outrage alert. We just can't get enough of them today. Okay, this time a commercial pilot takes drugs, tries to crash the plane with passengers on it, and gets, ready? He spent 46 days in jail. And now, no more jail. Yes, this is truly an outrage. Here's what happened. An Alaska Airlines pilot sitting in the jump seat reached over and turned off the plane's engines mid-flight. He was under the influence of magic mushrooms, and now he will avoid extra jail time beyond the 46 days. Yesterday, a federal judge sentenced former Alaska Airlines pilot Joseph Emerson to time served and 3 years supervised release. He had pleaded guilty to federal charges as part of a plea deal with the prosecutors. In October 2023, Emerson was riding off-duty in the plane's cockpit in the jump seat. He tried to pull the handles that cut fuel from engines. Luckily, the pilots who were flying the plane quickly grabbed him before he could pull down the handles. The plane then made an emergency landing in Portland, Oregon. There were 84 people on board who could have been killed. Emerson was then arrested. He told police he was grieving the loss of his best friend, sleep-deprived, and under the influence of alcohol. Emerson had also taken psychedelic mushrooms. So in the end, for the attempted murder of 84 people, he got 46 days. That is an outrage. And prisoners in the United States have sued their prisons for all sorts of reasons. A prisoner once sued because he asked for chunky peanut butter. They gave him a jar of creamy peanut butter. Another prisoner sued his prison because his sandwiches were soggy. And today, a convicted murderer in Australia is suing to eat Vegemite in prison. Vegemite is a sandwich spread. It's banned in Australian prisons for two reasons. First, inmates have used it before to hide the smell of illegal drugs from dogs. The second, it contains yeast, which could be used to make alcohol. The prisoner says this ban denies him his right to enjoy his culture as an Australian. The case is scheduled for trial next year. Coming up, two exes go to court, but not for their house or the car. Instead, it's an unusual asset with an unusual ruling. That when the record continues.
Hello, this is Franklin Graham. This Thanksgiving, what are you thankful for? You're thankful for family, your friends. How about God? That's right. Are you thankful for God? You see, God made you. He created you. He loves you. And you say, but Franklin, my life is in such a mess. I'm not sure I'm thankful for my life. Well, that's why God sent his son, Jesus Christ, to this earth to save us from this mess of sin that we live in. You see, that's right. God sent his son, Jesus Christ, to this earth to take your sins. He died and shed his blood on a cross for our sins, but on the third day, God raised him to life. He's not dead. He's alive. And he'll come into your heart right now if you invite him. Just pray this prayer with me. Just say, God, I'm a sinner. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I want to invite Jesus to come into my heart, to take control of my life. I want to surrender my life to him. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Prayed that prayer. Call that number that's on the screen.
Hi, I'm Wade Allen Root, the national TV and radio host known as the MAGA warrior and the capitalist evangelist.
This presidency is ushering in the golden age of prosperity, and it's all built around making America the energy capital of the world. Enter Lost Soldier Oil and Gas. It took 40 years to piece together this 40,000-acre giant gas discovery. It's estimated to contain up to 6 trillion cubic feet of gas, with a management forecast projecting the first 25 wells alone to produce 400 million cubic feet per day of natural gas. This is how we power the AI future of America with clean natural gas. Headed by oil and gas legend Mark Bruner, whose previous public companies delivered spectacular returns for investors. At their peaks, Pedico Energy grew about 100 to 1 for investors. Ultra Petroleum grew about 1,000 to 1 for investors. To learn more about Lost Soldier Oil and Gas, scan the QR code on the screen or go to lostsoldier.com. That's lostsoldier.com.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 91 years of age, with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, neither of us have any kind of sickness, and we're as flexible as we were 30 years ago, and we still do the physical things we did 30 years ago. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we did. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you. You won't believe it. Immuno 150 is an awesome nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it.
Yes, it really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order online or call the number listed on the screen, but don't place your order until after you've watched the videos on our website. Thank you from both of us, and God bless.
There's nothing worse than losing your dog before their time.
That's why I created Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, designed to help dogs with everything from digestive issues to itching, even moving better.
Nature's Blend works because it's freeze-dried. So instead of destroying the nutrients with high heat, they all get right into your dog's body.
Take it from a veterinarian with over 50 years of experience saving dogs' lives. I have never seen a food make this much impact on a dog's health.
For a limited time, get up to 54% off Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, plus a free gift with our special TV offer. Call or go to drmartypets.com/TV.
Sponsored by Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, the health of fresh food with the convenience of kibble. Visit drmartypets.com/TV.
A judge in Delaware came up with an idea. It's rather novel. After a years-long custody battle, and the custody battle involved not a child, but the couple's shared dog, a golden doodle named Tucker. Rather handsome fellow. Look at Tucker. So after hearing all the facts of the case, the judge decided the couple must bid against each other for the dog. And the winner keeps the dog. The loser gets the money. The judge said the auction will inevitably result in disappointment for one of the parties, but also said, quote, "It is undisputed that Tucker is a very good boy." Now the big question is, when is this auction, and can some of the rest of us bid on it as well? But anyway, maybe these people should learn how to settle their disputes someplace else than in court. How about visitation of the dogs? I got some other ideas. Anyway, that's all we got for the day. Chris Salcedo's show is up next. Stay with Newsmax for all the latest news. There's so much happening in the world, and you're going to see it right here at 4 p.m. Eastern every single day, Monday through Friday. So see you tomorrow.